Playmobil Spies, The Secret Under the Sphinx. Claire and Eliza were chatting in school whilst walking to history class together. They were going to learn about ancient Egypt, which both of them felt extremely interested about, so they were very excited. Suddenly, they heard a ringing sound. They quickly hid in the toilet and took out their contact mirrors to discover that they have another mission to do again. In fact, they were not just any ordinary high school girls, but also spies working for the Playmobil Secret Spies organization. This is the image they see from their contact mirrors. Their boss, Tom, was video calling using his laptop. Morning, ladies. The headquarters has just received some most updated news that the canopic jars belonging to Pharaoh Munkantan II has been reported missing, which was originally discovered by Professor Mobilux and his team under the Sphinx in Egypt. Your mission this time is to investigate what had happened to the canopic jars and arrest the thief. In case of any news, contact the headquarters as soon as possible. Good luck. Without further ado, the Playmobil Spies selected their outfits from their contact mirror, and in the blink of an eye they have already changed into them. When the spies met Professor Mobilux in his own house, they lost no time in inquiring him about what he knows on this case. This was what happened. A week before the incident, the professor received a parcel from a friend containing an object that seemed to come from Egypt, as it is shaped like the Eye of Horus. After closely examining the object, the professor reckoned it to be a key, but do not know where it is from. Therefore, the professor asks his student Samantha, who majored in the study of the history and culture of ancient Egypt, who was also an Egyptian herself, and Samantha's friend Eleanor and the professor's assistant Mr. Brown to accompany him to Egypt in order to solve the mystery of the key. They decided to commence their search in the Sphinx. Not long after their arrival in the Sphinx, the mystery of the key solved itself. Samantha discovered a hole that is shaped like the shape of the key, and the professor, after sticking the key in, found no result. Then, Mr. Brown suggested to try turning the key around. As if by magic, after turning the key clockwise, they heard a rumbling sound in the distance. At first, no one could discover the origin of the noise. However, after some detailed inspection, Eleanor discovered that the door of an entrance that looked exactly like a minuscule version of the Sphinx was slowly opening. Therefore, the team took up their courage and walked into the secret passage in an orderly single file. After Professor Mobilux, Samantha, Eleanor, and Mr. Brown left the secret tunnel behind them, what met their eyes was a surprisingly spacious chamber. Situated right in the center of the chamber was a pillar completely covered with hieroglyphics. Samantha, who understood the ancient Egyptian language, studied the pillar carefully and concluded, "There seems to be another secret passage somewhere here. However, some of the words have faded due to age and I cannot quite make out where exactly it is." Mr. Brown, after feeling extremely discouraged, resolved to lean on the pillar. Suddenly, there was a deafeningly rumble noise from a far distance. Mr. Brown, in his fit of disappointment, had accidentally touched the button to open the secret passage when leaning on the pillar without intending to. Then, Eleanor discovered that sand was rapidly draining away at a distance of about a meter away from them to reveal another opening to a tunnel leading further down into the Sphinx. After following the path in the tunnel, what met their eyes was a temple-like building. After closely examining the front of the building to find no clues, they walked to the back to examine it further. To their astonishment, they discovered another keyhole shaped like the key. The professor pushed the key into the hole with all his might. This time, without the need of turning, they heard a loud bang like a door being opened abruptly. After turning back to the front of the building again, they perceived that an invisible door in the building had opened, which they hadn't noticed before. What was more surprising was that inside the cabinet there were 4 canopic jars. Without warning, Mr. Brown suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "Wow, is that they already?" Only then did the others notice that it was very near sundown. The professor said, Looks like we should call it a day here and leave any further investigation till tomorrow, as I'm afraid we would lose our way in the Sphinx without sunlight. But remember, do not tell anyone outside our group about anything that has happened today. This is because, firstly, we're not sure yet of who these canopy jars belong to, and also, I'm afraid there will be greedy people trying to steal them illegally, so it's best not to mention anything, just in case. After the professor has finished, they closed the door to the cabinet and hurried out of the Sphinx, leaving the canopy jars behind. Nevertheless, after they came back on the following day, they were extremely dumbfounded to discover that all the canopy jars were gone. After the spies have received the information, they followed the path of the professor, and exactly like they were told, there was nothing left to be seen in the cabinet of the temple-like building. Their conclusion was everything would be quite impossible without the key. However, the professor claimed that the key was not left at their site during the period, as he was the one taking charge of it. Therefore, the spies could not help but to suspect that the canopy jars was stolen by one of the people in the group, or else no one could have gotten the key in any way. The spies continued their investigation by inquiring the lady at the reception in the hotel that the professor's team stayed in. "Excuse me, miss, could you tell us if anyone in the professor's group has left the hotel on the night before yesterday?" The information they received was, "If I have not mistaken, I recollect that there was a sandstorm on that night. Therefore, it was impossible for anyone to leave the hotel." Discouraged by the reply, when the spies were about to leave, the lady replied, Oh wait, I remember. On that night, no one left the hotel. However, the professor came downstairs to inquire if there was anyone selling ice cream around here. I told him that it is a long walk to the nearest shop and that it would be dangerous to walk outside in a sandstorm, so I advised him to buy the ice cream from our hotel restaurant. He seemed extremely disappointed whilst walking to the restaurant. In all honesty, I don't understand what's wrong with the ice cream of our hotel. Yes, it is a bit more expensive, but at least it's more hygienic of a more superior quality, unlike the ones they sell outside. The spies, after noticing that the lady was going into a rant, quickly thanked her and returned to their own rooms. After returning to their room, they started to go into a deep thought. After some discussion, they both agreed that it is very likely that the professor is the thief. It's not only that his actions seemed very suspicious, suddenly wanting to eat ice cream at night and telling everyone to go back after discovering the canopy jars instead of investigating further, which is indeed very unlike the style of the professor, and also the ridiculous excuse he gave for calling everyone off of being afraid of getting lost in the Sphinx at night, when having sunlight or no sunlight makes absolutely no difference when they are underground. Indeed, all of the evidence make the professor seem ever more likely to be the thief. However, if that really is the case, why would he contact the headquarters to help him solve this mystery? Also, at the night of the sandstorm, how did he leave the hotel and retrace his steps back to the Sphinx and steal the canopy jars? Moreover, where would he place the canopy jars so as not to let everyone suspect him after he has stolen them? The case is getting more bizarre by the second. So the spies did not neglect the possibilities of others as suspects and decided to follow them all in order to investigate further into the mystery. The spies decided to follow everyone in the group in order to discover some more clues to solve the mystery. Eliza followed the professor, who went to a local international school to perform a speech to the students, which was nothing suspicious. Claire, on the other hand, was in charge of following Mr. Brown, who went to a nearby horse barn to visit his friend. Again, nothing fishy here. The spies were going to follow the other two, Samantha and Eleanor. However, they stayed in their hotel room organizing information the whole time, which was not suspicious either. The spies got into another deep thought after returning to their room, as they discovered none of the four to seem guilty. Then who exactly is this thief? Suddenly, Eliza exclaimed, I know! There's one other person who has seen the key before, the professor's friend who sent him the key. Claire, using her laptop, quickly went on the website of the post office to check the details of each parcel and was extremely astonished to discover that the person that mailed the key to the professor was a woman named Helena Hardy, who had sent the key from France. The spies, reluctant to let any clues escape, contacted the headquarters and asked them to send them information about this mysterious woman. After some time, the spies received information from the headquarters. It indicated that Helena Hardy is a famous antiquary in France who specializes in the trade of ancient Egyptian antiques. Although she is now single, she was married once and got divorced, and her husband was no other than Professor Mobilux. Coincidentally, she has arrived in Egypt exactly 3 days ago and was currently staying in the same hotel as the Professor and his team, as well as the spies. The Professor never mentioned that the parcel was sent from his ex-wife, which was very fishy indeed. After studying the information, the spies quickly went downstairs to inquire the reception lady. "Excuse me, miss, is there anyone living in this hotel with the name Helena Hardy?" She's our friend, and could you tell us which room she is staying in?" After checking on her computer, the reception lady replied, "Oh, Miss Helena has checked out this morning at 9:30. Her flight will be departing in 15 minutes at 11 o'clock. The spies quickly checked their watches and was horrified to confirm that it was indeed 15 minutes to 11. After thanking the reception lady heartily, they quickly took a taxi to the airport. When the spies arrived at the boarding gate of the airport, they were horrified to discover that the aeroplane Helena Hardy boarded has already departed. The spies looked on as the plane flew further and farther away. Just when they were about to leave in disappointment, suddenly the plane turned back around and came back. They couldn't believe their eyes. What has happened? This is because a huge sandstorm has suddenly started, so the plane was forced to turn back. The spies were delighted. Is Pharaoh Manka tattoos secretly helping them? When Helena Hardy was descending the plane, she was caught red-handed by the spies when her suitcase fell from the stairs and opened itself to reveal the 4 canopic jars. The spies immediately informed the police, and the professor also came with them. The professor exclaimed in astonishment, "Helena, it's you! How did you steal them?" When Helena was put on handcuffs, she replied, "You want to know how I stole them? Alright, I'll tell you. On that day before I sent you the key, I already used the 3D scanning and printing technology to create a copy of the original, and I placed the mini dictaphone on the key so I can eavesdrop on all your conversations as long as you have the key with you. After hearing that you found the canopic jars, I followed your path on the next morning after the sandstorm and took them before you could get to them." The professor inquired, "Why would you do such a thing?" Helena snorted, "It's because of you. I love you so much, but you repay me with a divorce using the lame excuse of not being able to bear my extremist personality. I swore to myself then that I will ruin your reputation so you will have nothing left. If it wasn't because of all these detestable spies, my plan would have succeeded in letting everyone think you have stolen them. Then your reputation of a professor will be ruined." The professor said, "Helena, I don't mind if you hate me, but now you've ruined your own reputation. Is it really worth it?" Helena, before being escorted away, replied with tears in her eyes, "Is it of any use regretting it now? No, because you don't love me anymore." Although the spies were extremely glad that their mission was accomplished successfully, they felt quite sorry for Helena. The end. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.